Goodbye YouTube. So apparently I've not uploaded a fortune battle in about 2 weeks or so because I didn't think I had any saved up, but it turns out that I have this pretty good battle that I had against thqr, and I believe I am using an RMT team, and if I can find the RMT, I'll make sure to leave a link to it down in the description so I take no credit for this team. But yeah, there is no team preview, so with that, let's get right into the battle. And he's going to be leading off with the Swampert, as I'm going to be leading off with my own Swampert. Right off the bat, we're just going to get up our hazards, then go for our offensive moves. As this turn, we are both going to switch out. He brings in the Empoleon, knowing that he can take Swampert one-on-one, and I know my Blissey should be able to take his Swampert one-on-one, and I am able to get up the better end of the switch outs, as I'm just going to stand and go for a Seismic Toss, not really fearing anything that he wants to bring in. As he brings in the T-Tar, I see that he has leftovers, so I'm actually not going to be fearing the pursuit, and I'm going to switch directly into my Swampert. And as you're going to see, he does turn out to have the substitute, which automatically tells me that he is the Tyrannoboa set, which means I know that he's going to go for a Focus Punch. Unfortunately though, I do not carry Roar on the Swampert, so I'm just going to have to go for the Earthquake. As the following turn, I should be able to knock him out. I know that he's going to be fearing this, and more than likely bring in a Grass type or a Flying type, as he does bring in the Skarmory. In hindsight, maybe I should have gone for the Hydro Pump, but I didn't know his team, so honestly, I guess, yeah, Ice Beam was the better play in the long run if he did want to bring in a Grass type. As I miss my Hydro Pump, he gets up a layer of Spikes, and I risk him possibly getting up all 3 layers, which is why I'm actually going to make an aggressive switch directly into my Fortress so I can spin away his hazards. But I know that he might want to bring in a Ghost type, which is why I'm actually going to go for the Payback. But instead he brings in the Flygon, which I found to be a bit odd, just because I can take any hit Flygon wants to go for. But it turns out that he has Fire Punch. Thankfully though, Fortress has some pretty decent bulk, and I'm able to live the hit and spin away all his hazards. Unfortunately though, this now means my Fortress will die off to Stealth Rocks if he does get them up again, so I have to watch out for that. And I can now bring in my Tyranitar, Pursuit, trap the Flygon. As he brings in the Scizor, I don't want to take the Bullet Punch, and he knows that I am going to want to switch out, so he's just going to go for the U-turn, and unfortunately he ends up getting a crit on my Rotom switch-in, and this kind of comes to play a role in a couple turns, as I'm going to stay, and I'm going to go for the Shadow Ball, because even if I brought in my Fortress, the following turn he could have just knocked out my Fortress, so I thought getting off as much damage on the Swampert would have been the better play, as I'm going to go for the Hydro Pump on the options that maybe he wants to bring in the Tyranitar. I'm just going to stay and take the Surf, and this is where the crit kind of matters, because now instead of being able to go for another Hydro Pump or a Shadow Ball, I'm going to be forced to go for the Rest, which means this Swampert can basically stay in, gain leftovers recovery, and force me to switch out and possibly even go for the Roar to start getting off more damage on my team. But he's just going to make the safe play, which is a Surf, as I bring in my Blissey. Now I believe this Blissey is max defense and max HP, so I should be able to take an Earthquake from the Swampert, which is why I'm actually going to go straight for the Seismic Toss. That way the following turn I can go for a Soft Bolt, then possibly finish him off. And Earthquake does a pretty decent bit of damage, and this turn he knows that I am going to want to go for my recovery move, so he's going to be able to get a free switch into Tyranitar, knowing that I wouldn't want to go for a Toxic or a possible Thunder Wave on his switch out. And I know that a Seismic Toss won't be able to break Tyranitar's substitute, so I'm going to switch directly back out into my Swampert, and I don't have Roar, so again I just have to go straight for the Earthquake and maybe try to knock out this Tyranitar as he gets off a decent bit of damage with Dark Pulse. The following turn I know that a Hydro Pump should be able to knock him out, and on the off chance that he does want to bring in Skarmory, Hydro Pump should be an easy 2-hit KO, barring the fact that I don't get a crit, which I don't get a crit, and that means he's going to be able to outspeed me and get up 1 layer of Spikes, which is going to be really annoying because now my team will be taking more entry hazards damage than his team will be taking, which means I have to be careful with my switch-ins. As he brings in the Empoleon, I'm just going to basically fodder off my Fortress because at this point I don't really need it, and I don't want my Blissey to take any unnecessary damage. As I bring in my Blissey, I'm just going to stay in and I'm going to go for the Seismic Toss, which honestly was a really stupid play just because I completely forgot about the fact that Flygon would die off to the entry hazard switch in, which means now he can bring in the Scizor and knock me out with a Bullet Punch or a Superpower, and fearing this, I'm actually going to switch out, but he makes a very good play knowing that I wouldn't want to switch out. He decides to go for the Pursuit, gets off enough damage on my Blissey to the point where I will die off to my next switch in. I would really like it if my family did not interrupt me. Anyways, as I was saying, with my Blissey gone, Empoleon has just now become a major problem that I really have to watch out for. But I bring in Gyarados. As he brings in the Swampert, I roar him out into the T-Tar. I'm going to go straight for the Waterfall. As he decides to fodder off his Swampert, that's fine by me. That's one less Pokemon I have to worry about. Unfortunately though, this now gives him a free switch into the Empoleon, but I am pretty positive I should be able to live any one hit from it, which is why I'm actually going to stay in and go for the Roar, because at this point I'm pretty positive Tyranitar could beat his team. As I roar him out into the Scizor, he's actually going to make a bit of an over prediction, and he's going to go for the Pursuit as opposed to going for the Bullet Punch and taking out my Gyarados, because this now means on the off chance that I do lose my Tyranitar, I have a switch in to his Scizor's Bullet Punches. And knowing that he would want to switch out, I'm actually just going to stay in and I'm going to go for the Sleep Talk. As I Sleep Talk the Waterfall, I get off a pretty decent bit of damage on the Empoleon, and I don't want my Gyarados to take any unnecessary damage, and all I really need to do is get a free switch into my T-Tar, which is why I decided to fodder off my Blissey, allowing me to get that well-needed switch in, because at this point, with me being Scarfed and having Earthquake, I should be able to beat his whole team. Unfortunately though, he does still have that Scissor, which can easily force me out with the Bullet Punch, so I have to watch out for that, and with him having up that extra layer of spikes, this means that my Tyranitar will be taking more entry hazard damage, and I have to be careful with how I switch it in. So as he brings in the Scissor, he's going to make a good play knowing that I wouldn't want to take a Bullet Punch. He's actually going to go for the U-turn, U-turning on out into the Empoleon, and then he's going to take me out with an Ice Beam, which really isn't too crucial just because I can now get a free switch back into my Tyranitar. And I was pretty positive that I would be able to take out Scizor after the Stealth Rock's damage. Unfortunately though, it just barely survives, which means I have to switch out because Tyranitar is basically my win condition, and is going to go for the U-turn as opposed to going for the Bullet Punch, which really isn't game-changing at all, just because if he did go for the Bullet Punch, I could have then brought in Gyarados, Sleep Talked, and either roared or waterfalled, and thankfully my Tyranitar barely lives the next switch in, and I'm going to be able to knock out the Empoleon, and then Scizor will die off to the Stealth Rocks, and that's going to be the pretty narrow 2-0 victory in my favor. So yeah, that was actually a pretty fun and intense battle. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. With that, make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to some more content, and yeah, we'll see you guys later.